Okay, ready? 3, 2.
Ready.
I'm sorry. I just saw that on the notes. It says movie pass.
Yeah, I just read that too.
That was so surreal, guys. Like, that was like, I turn on border and it's like,
What? Where does it say
my
movie pass?
goodness.
On the notes. Yeah. When that popped up, I definitely was like, "Wait, what? Oh yeah, that."
Where does it say movie pass?
In the
Oh yeah, Brennan's pick movie pass film.
All right, let's go right into it, Nick.
Okay.
With this
Ready?
attitude.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the show where we get together every month and we talk about movies we've seen, what we recommend, and what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 movie shows on the internet is that we're high school friends, and we've been discussing movies for 15 years. We love talking film, and we'd be doing it even if no one was listening. Are you listening out there? I hope you are, because I'm psyched about talking about movies. I'm here today. I'm Nick Moffat. I'm here with Brandon Bowlby in New York City.
How's it going?
We got Derek Deal in Everett, Washington.
Hey.
And we got Sean Bowlby in Seattle, Washington.
Hi.
At least I think that's where you are. Sean, are you still in Seattle, Washington?
Yep.
Nice. Well, far out, guys. Far out. Man, what a month. You know, it's October 1st right now when we're recording. The episode will be out in a few days, but this is our September episode. And, we picked 4 movies that were coming out in September, and we were going to watch them. Basically, we didn't know if they were going to be good or not, but we're pretty eager to watch them. You know, the thing is, the film industry is in a weird place. All 4 of us still can't really go to movie theaters, even if we wanted to. Like, I don't think I would go to the theater if they were open around here, but there aren't any in New York or Seattle or Everett, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Right, guys?
You
Yeah.
are correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, there might be like one around where you
There's
can
like
maybe,
there's some drive-ins and some drive-in stuff.
I keep hearing rumors about there being able to like rent a theater for like $150 for yourself.
Yes, I heard about that too. You can do that in Washington. I know.
Okay.
I'm just not positive where.
Yeah, I have no idea where that is, but maybe like south of Olympia or something, Chehalis. But either way, so yeah, all 4 of the movies that we picked for this episode are movies that are available to stream right now. And we picked them ahead of time, thinking that hopefully we would like them. But we'll get to them. Those are the 4 movies we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to do our film club segment, which is when Brandon, or someone, in this case it was Brandon, picked a movie that can be from any decade. And we're going to do our film club segment. But first, I got some warm-up questions for you guys that are related to the movies we're talking about today. So question number 1, which movie is better? Being John Malkovich or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eternal Sunshine.
Let me change it then. What movie's better, Being John Malkovich or Adaptation?
Adaptation.
Adaptation.
We got no Being John Malkovich
Adaptation
fans here.
or Eternal Sunshine of the Spot.
Okay.
Eternal
Being John
Sunshine.
Malkovich,
Adaptation.
Being John Malkovich or Human Nature. Just kidding. We can move on.
Wait, what's
No,
your
those-
opinion, real quick? What's your hot take?
No, I mean, I just rewatched Being John Malkovich, and it's brilliant. Like, it's amazing.
Really good.
I just
Yeah.
love the crap out of it. But also, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of my favorite romances of all time, and Adaptation is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. So,
You're
yeah,
obsessed with that movie.
I would put it at number 3 as well. So, what Disney live-action movie is better? The Lion King or Aladdin?
The Lion King.
I didn't see
Watch
Aladdin.
Aladdin. Yeah.
Neither
And
of you
I'm
guys saw
not,
Aladdin.
but I'm not
King.
going to say Lion King.
Honestly, as bad as Lion King was, I think Lion King was better.
Yeah, see, I
Jungle
definitely,
Book. People need to talk about the Jungle
dude.
Book more.
I was gonna bring up Jungle Book, but it was like, okay, the other
It's
side of
too
that
easy.
question is what's better, Jungle Book or Beauty and the Beast?
Jungle Book's like pretty
Jungle
good.
Book, yeah. I think Jungle
You're gonna
Book
hate
is.
me, but Beauty and the Beast.
I think
guys.
Jungle Book
I don't
is the
know.
only one that is actually better than the original.
Agreed.
Whoa.
It
I actually happened to watch them both like back to back, the original and the John Favreau.
yeah, I mean, like the original just
completely
doesn't have much of a plot. It's
Yeah.
very meandery. It doesn't have, really an ending. It's kind of a meh ending, and the live action version actually gives it a plot and agency and narrative, and is a lot more satisfying.
Okay, cool.
The music's terrible, but yeah.
Brandon, I definitely prefer Aladdin over Lion King, by the way, though.
Okay.
So I thought Aladdin was fine, but whatever. Cool. I just had those two warm up questions. Honestly, that's what I got. So the other two movies that we're talking about, documentaries, and I just didn't come up with a question for them. But both those questions had sub questions on top of it. So I did ask you guys four warm up questions. So anyway, I feel like we should just get into our film club segment. Like I said in the intro, Brandon picked a movie from any decade, any year, any time. It wasn't a 2020 movie, and encouraged us all to watch it. Like we all had to watch it. And like last month, Sean got it. Someone else will get next month. And Brandon, do you want to set up the movie that you picked?
Yeah. So the movie I picked is a Swedish film called Border. This film was released in 2018. It was produced by the company MoviePass in the peak of that company's existence. And yeah, like you were saying at the beginning, it was surreal to turn this movie on, and the opening like logo is just the like old school MoviePass logo from the app. And that company has just came and gone.
Gosh, what a time capsule movie
what a
this
whirlwind.
was. It came on like a wrecking ball and
Changed the industry forever.
and then just vanished. Yeah.
So I found this movie. Well, yeah, MoviePass was promoting it on their app, but I wasn't expecting to go see it until my coworker was just like, she sees movies all the time after work, and I was looking for a movie to go see after work. She was like, don't look at anything, don't watch a trailer, just go. Don't read anything about it, just go. And I'm so glad I did. Like, it was one of the funnest theater experiences I had like that year. I remember like all the people around me were like gasping and giggling and just like, what the fuck, out loud. And it was just like such a great atmosphere to be at this indie theater, and everyone was vibing on this movie in the same way. So I won't forget that. Honestly, on repeat viewing, for me, I think this movie
Brandon,
works.
tell us a little bit about the plot. What's this movie about? You know what I mean? Like just a sentence or two,
so
like anything.
A customs officer who could smell fear develops an unusual attraction to a strange traveler while aiding a police investigation, which will call into question her entire existence. Okay. That's the plot. It's kind of a mystery fantasy film. And it's a movie like very much about self-discovery from this lead character. So I honestly thought with that like self-discovery, and every scene is kind of like answering a new question that you have as you're learning more and more about what they actually are. It works just so much better on first viewing, and kind of second viewing, I was a little underwhelmed at what's essentially this origin story over the course of 2 hours. But with that said, like, I loved how kind of far this like script and director took these like kind of fucked up concepts and like twisted visuals that are just so impactful. I mean, like, you know, specifically I remember the fridge and the cardboard box scene was just like blew my mind the first time I saw it. And I hope it had like that kind of impact to you guys as well. And it's just like it keeps hitting those big moments throughout the entire film until like the last scene. And I know I was reading some of your guys' little paragraphs on here, but I kind of liked the way it interwove this like really fucked up murder storyline alongside of it that she's investigating, and how that just how that weaves in and out of the what's actually going on with our lead character. So I was kind of on board with all of it, but maybe my review dropped half a star from when I first saw it.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon, I gave this movie 4 stars. So I thought it was great. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to give it 4.5, but for me, it just because it was like, this is a movie where I feel like your coworker was totally in the right by telling you to not look at anything about it, because it really takes you for a ride. Like, at the beginning of it, it's like what's up with this person? Like the main character, she works at a
just
border.
standing there sniffing the air.
Like, why she looks so weird. Just everything is weird.
I mean, I don't think it's giving anything away by saying that like she just has like a sense about people and things. And there's a scene where she she's a border guard, so she's like evaluating people as they're coming through the border. And there's a scene where a guy comes to the border and she stops him, and they go through his bag and there's nothing. And then she takes out his phone and finds a microchip like in the phone case. How would she know it's there? She just could smell it or sense it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so what's with this person, right? I mean, she looks funny, like she doesn't look like an average person. She looks like different. And so I didn't know what this movie was doing. What is this movie, like a fantasy? Is it like an allegory for like trans people, or is it just like a drama about like this weird person? And I really loved that dynamic, and I loved how it played out. And I don't want to say anything about how it turns out, but having it be about self-discovery is absolutely like so true. Like, this is like, I don't think it's a coming of age movie, but it's certainly a like coming of who you truly are movie or something, And it wasn't that. So then the movie though, like what I just said about the microchip, like the whole subplot of the movie is like them exploring that microchip and trying to like track down this like child trafficking ring that was on that microchip. And it wasn't a microchip, it was a floppy disk or something, but
it was like a SD card.
Yeah. And so and I just felt like that part,
tech terminology.
Yeah. I just thought that part wasn't like as developed, and I maybe it wasn't as developed, it just something about the pacing of this movie was kind of off for me, and that's why like I ended up giving it 4 stars, because there was just something that I couldn't even necessarily put my finger on, but it was just missing like a little extra oomph. And maybe it was just that I just thought maybe it was that part of the movie wasn't as strong as I wish it was, or maybe they could have just not had that part of the movie and had it been more full about the self-discovery. But that's kind of what I was thinking. But it wasn't that I didn't like that part. I just thought it wasn't as powerful, I guess, as it could have been.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and like a really great like kind of narrative I don't know,
a
narrative way to push her forward.
Way.
Yeah, definitely. But I thought it was kind of in this weird middle ground where it was important enough to where it was the driver of her change, and like the thing that ultimately arced her character. But at the same time, they didn't really give it the time to, or the screen time to like give it the urgency or get us to really care about it as much as I think we should have. And like for me, it was like every time they cut back to that stuff, I was like, oh yeah, this stuff is happening too. And it was just a little jarring, and you would kind of forget about it during other parts of the movie. So I kind of agree. It was in this weird kind of middle ground of the movie.
It's not to say that the movie was like super fascinating.
Yeah.
Though, so
yeah,
Definitely had like that same feeling, but I ended up blaming it on the other parts of the movie. Like, I think maybe because this movie's so wild and like the fantasy is like the stuff they explore in it is just so different than like anything we've really ever seen before. I think that I latched onto like the crime drama like more strongly because that was something I could actually like really understand, like kind of what was happening. And I almost felt like the other part was what was kind of slowing the movie down, or even though that's kind of what the focus of the movie was, but it that self-discovery stuff I guess just didn't click quite as well for me as it sounds like it did for you guys, while the crime stuff did actually click really well for me.
We're all over the board.
Yeah, totally.
I really wish we could go into detail about the stuff that happens with her self-discovery, like that scene in the woods, you know, when oh my goodness.
Did you guys like gasp?
Oh my goodness. I was like, what?
I definitely out loud.
Yeah.
What?
That scene in a crowded movie theater full of people was so good.
I can only imagine New York City. Like whenever I've seen a movie in New York City, there's always like loud people. You know, like there's always big reactions. Yeah. So I could just imagine people being like screaming.
Yeah, exactly. So, like laugh screaming, like But I think it's supposed to be shocking like that.
Yeah,
well, the movie's so like creative and like just well made that like it's hard to not like it like throughout the whole thing. Really interested to see like what other kinds of stuff this director's made, because this is like, for me, this is like stretching. Like this is so far out there. Like just like how crazy and like how do you? I know it's probably more of a. I know like some of this lore probably exists in some way in like Scandinavia. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Oh
it's
yeah,
probably based on
a lot of ideas and then taking them.
Yeah, but it's like I'm so outside that bubble that like everything they're throwing at you in this movie is just like, what the hell? Like, holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say this movie is like weird, not necessarily on like a filmmaking level, but just like on the script level, like on the page. And that's kind of, you know, a cool reversal of
it was really interesting how it's really interesting how everything unraveled, like kind of at its own pace, but in like a kind of an organic and natural feeling pace where it wasn't like, you know, it didn't rush the discoveries and it didn't like force the characters into these discoveries. It was like, it was really nice the way it was laid out. And it just didn't have any qualms with like taking the audience in these weird directions and making the audience uncomfortable with it. Yeah.
And one thing that I really appreciated too, just circling back around to the whole self-discovery thing, was how true it felt. You know, how once the main character found out who she was, she became more confident as a person. And it was like, you could just see like her body language change. Like, I mean, I can't help but think like this happens to a lot of people in real life, you know, even though this movie has like elements of allegory and fantasy. It's like when you find out who you are and you become the person that you're supposed to be, there's confidence that goes with that. And, you know, find that pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I mean, that was Border. It's available on Hulu. So, I mean, I really recommend everyone watching this movie. You know, if you are down for kind of a weird foreign film, I recommend Border. It's on Hulu. I think all of us do. So, great pick, Brandon. Thanks for making us watch it.
You're welcome.
So let's get into our 2020 movies. We've got 4 2020 movies to talk about, and of varying degrees of awesomeness. Starting with
Let's do it, Sean.
Starting with the Disney Plus movie, Sean's
Okay.
pick, the big blockbuster
$200
Mulan.
million blockbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sean, let's set
To
the
live
table
up
for
to its
this.
budget.
I picked the movie Mulan. So directed by Nikki Caro. The synopsis is: a young Chinese maiden disguises herself as a male warrior in order to save her father. Everyone knows the story of Mulan. Almost everyone's probably seen it. I actually picked this movie because I was kind of excited to see a big epic blockbuster and to see $200 million up on a screen. And, it's just been forever since we've had a blockbuster, since we've been able to watch a large, big budget movie come out. And I was pretty excited for it. I've definitely never really particularly enjoyed any of the Disney remakes, live action remakes, aside from Jungle Book, which we talked about earlier. But I was willing to be fine with one of these movies as long as it kind of held up.
And Mulan's like a big cinematic story.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot kind of to be excited about and everything. But so to kind of go off on a tangent here, me and Kelly are right now watching The Good Place. And there's a line in The Good Place which I absolutely love and I think really applies to these live action Disney remakes. So Eleanor and Michael are sitting eating frozen yogurt, and Eleanor says, "What is it with you and frozen yogurt? Have you ever heard of ice cream?" And Michael says, "Oh, sure, but I've come to really like frozen yogurt. There's something so human about taking something great and ruining it just a little bit so that you can have more of it." And that perfectly describes these live action remakes, taking these great classic Disney films and ruining them just a little bit so we can have them again.
Sometimes a lot of it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this movie, it ruins them a lot a bit. And, I guess if we were to start off on a positive note, I would just say they shot in some pretty locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some pretty great Chinese scenery.
Yeah, there's some really pretty nature shots
the,
and nature
Mongolian
stuff.
kind of valley, mountain vista.
Beautiful mountains
really cool.
and
I think there's a few things that we can be positive about too. I mean, just Asian representation on screen, it's all Asian cast, that's something, and you guys might disagree with this immediately, but the money was on screen, the cinematography was pretty good. It was fun. It was pretty to look at and the colors were dazzling. Pause.
No, they were for sure. There's, but I think that goes with the scenery too. There's that where there's a fight scene in that. It kind of looked like it was in I don't know what to describe it as other than the only thing I can think of is I've seen similar imagery in Yellowstone Park,
volcanic activity. Not in a volcano or anything, but it's the geothermal activity and
that was just a really cool looking.
Yeah, there were some really cool locations. There was some pretty shots. I would not go as far as to say that the movie as a whole was pretty. I would kind of go there was on one hand some really beautiful cinematography and really beautiful colors. On the other hand, I actually thought it was a lot of it was pretty forced and pretty clunky, and a lot of it was really bland and very overlit and I don't know. So it was kind of a mixture for me. And just you could kind of really get into all the things that they decided to change about this movie. They didn't have the music. They took out Mushu and Cricket, and they added a villain to the mix. They removed the love story. They added this idea of chi and magic, and like kind of introduced a new fighting style to the movie. And you could kind of get into all those, and like, is the idea of bringing this into the movie or making this change a good idea or a bad idea? But I think like ultimately on a fundamental level, none of that, nothing about the movie, nothing about this movie or these changes really work, because they weren't accompanied by like any kind of competence or clarity or direction or like real complexity to anything that they were doing with the movie. And like the themes of this movie were as basic as fuck. The characters were virtually non-existent. And the arcs were very uninteresting and never really paid off in any kind of meaningful way. And like, I found myself like, unconsciously like yelling out loud verbally several times throughout this movie, what the fuck is anyone talking about? There's like one scene in particular that really stood out where after like, you know, the big battle, Mulan finally reveals herself to her fellow warriors, and the Donnie Yen character, the general guy, says, "Your punishment is expulsion," and she says, "I'd rather be executed." And then Donnie Yen says, "No, and if you show your face here again, I'll execute you." It's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Who wrote how did this like, these movies at least have a baseline of quality control in general, and this movie just like that just like totally fell apart, it seemed like, for this movie.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and then, like,
obviously
she comes back like, you know, she finds out like that the mission, you know, they need to go and save the leader, the king. And that same guy who just expelled her was like, actually, you're going to be in charge for this one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What?
And,
but,
yeah.
I'd like to backtrack just a little bit, Sean. You were talking about all the changes that were made. And, you know, personally, I think the biggest problem is that this movie, like, doesn't have any character, like, at all. Like, I don't know anything about any of the characters, like, basically. Like, I feel like, I know that the main character, Mulan. Yeah, Mulan has chi. That's all I really know about her. And like honor and family. But like that's more about the culture than about the character. But like, what do you think, all three of you guys, what do you think is the worst change that they did for this movie? Because you listed them. You said like 4 or 5 things that they decided to change. What was the thing that made the least sense? Like, what was the most fundamentally wrong change that they made?
I think adding the chi was probably like a snowball effect that like they tried to work it in throughout the movie in all these different ways, and they had to start cutting stuff to like make that work. And then like, I don't know, I think like that from the beginning, like from that opening scene when she's like a kid and they kind of start to introduce it like that immediately breaks her character arc apart so that it doesn't exist throughout the whole movie. And then everything just falls apart from there. So that's what I think is like the big culprit of the story just not working whatsoever, is them forcing that concept into it and having to add characters and remove characters and like.
Yeah, I'm not sure why this story needs chi. Like, it would have been, I think it would have been perfectly fine to like change up the martial arts style and like do kind of a more, I don't know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon's been kind of brought up a lot in comparison to this movie, but like kind of just doing that, like they have these abilities and they use them. You don't have to like, it doesn't have to, and you don't have to go through, you don't have to add all this detail into like why it works and like, it's just, why bring in the idea of chi? Like, just kind of change the way that they fight would have been fine, I guess, if that's what you wanted to do. So I would agree with that.
Yeah. And honestly, Nick, I probably have only seen Mulan once.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well-
I hope the ragtag team of friends was better in the original. I'm guessing that's something Disney would do right in an animated movie, but did so wrong in this.
So for me, I honestly thought the biggest fundamental flaw of this movie was getting rid of the dragon. You know, what's the dragon's name? Mushu. I thought that was honestly the biggest.
One of the characters' names was Mushu, and one of the characters' names was Cricket in this movie. But I heard those names. I was like, that's almost offensive.
Like, I think taking out the dragon like fundamentally made the movie like quote unquote like more serious. You know, this was like a serious big blockbuster that we're doing, and we have to add chi to make it more serious and believable. Whereas
take
like
out the music too.
Right, they took out the music too, but like those two things, the music and the talking dragon, made it like less of a kids movie and more of like a big epic, and I just think that like the dragon, you know, played by Eddie Murphy in the original, was like such a fun character that she could interact with, like go back and forth with, and like it kind of like grounded the movie in like a character way, you know, like you actually got to like experience her in her thoughts because she was like talking to someone, working through all of her problems and like the situations. It wasn't just her like, you know, like living like and sitting in silence, basically, you know, like you don't get to know this character at all because she's just silent the whole movie, and it just like
No one to
not
talk
only
to.
Right, there's no one to talk to. There's no one to talk about how she's actually a woman hiding in disguise. Like, there's no one that like knows her secret, so she can't like, you know, have any fun with the secret. And it just makes the movie really dour. And I don't know, it's just very strange because not only did taking out Mushu like fundamentally change the tone of the movie, but it also took away any ability for the character to have any interaction with anyone. So,
yeah, and then ultimately they just don't follow through with that. And like if you want to make the movie more serious and darker, like you have to, I don't know, follow through with it. Have complex themes, have complex characters, and have basic dialogue that works. You know, to convey what you're doing in the movie, and like it just ultimately never followed through with you know any of these changes. I think
I think one thing that really upset me about this movie is like when you go and see a blockbuster like this with $200 million budget, like you expect like some areas to be like bringing their A game, like some technical departments or like costume design, set design, CGI. Like something is still going to stand out even if like the script fails on a lot of these summer blockbusters. But here it was just like on all fronts, I was being like aggravated with how poor it was put together. On just like every department, I have gripes, and they just kept coming up over and over again with scenes. And I was just like, in my head, it was just like, ew, like, oh, why?
I think you
why
should
are
list
these
them
like
all
tertiary departments failing so bad? I don't like who's holding this movie together.
I like that you listed them out on the document, Brennan. I think you should list them all out.
Like, I won't go into details, but just like I had gripes with the costume designs, the set designs. We had very Aladdin type complaints as well to me. Some of the makeup, the acting was awful throughout this movie. Even the location scouting had beautiful locations, but some of them just like came out of nowhere and just like really not ADD, just like jump cut to these bizarre places. Editing was awful. Choreography was just some of the
That
worst.
shot you sent us is so. I've been showing people that.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And it's weird that the CGI was so bad at so many moments. Like I remember just the rabbits like running next to her.
Yeah,
Like
it's $200
how can you not
million.
animate rabbits running through grass at this like day and age?
You just came out with The Lion King.
That's it. That's my rant.
pretty shocking.
So real quick, guys, I wanted to just ask you, like, where does this rank among like the other Disney anime movies? I mean, I was kind of alluding to it earlier with my warm-up questions, but you know, it's definitely in the bottom tier. But like, would you say it's as bad as The Lion King? Do you think it's the worst one? Like where would you rank this one?
This is worse than Aladdin and Lion King. This is the worst one.
Yeah.
I gave it.
See, I think I'm a little more friendly with this movie, guys. I don't know. I mostly thought this movie was pretty boring, but I didn't think it was like, I don't know. I thought it was mostly just fine. So, you know, I'd probably put it not as bad as Lion King.
How about Aladdin?
Oh, that is so weird. That is
I
so
thought Aladdin
bizarre.
was better than this, though, for sure. So
Okay, yeah, okay.
How many stars did you give it, Nick?
2.
Okay.
So did
So
I.
you
So
think
did
it was better than Lion King?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow,
I
that
think
is so. At least, like, I mean, I feel like, and it's because the Lion King, like pretty much followed the original movie, plot point for plot point. It was fine. This movie, like, barely held together as a film. It's just, I don't know. And I guess you like it when movies take big swings and fail, as opposed to just kind of by the books. So I guess that kind of where you're coming
that's
from?
actually the
or-
opposite. I kind of feel like this one was just by the books, and it was just like boring. Like, to me, this was like, I don't know. I didn't see as many of the like I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, like, I thought this movie was like kind of fun to look at. Like, I honestly think if I saw this in theaters, I would be much more friendly with it. Like, I think like if I saw this in theaters, I might give it like 2.5 or 3 stars. Like, I might have had a totally different experience because I would have maybe been sucked into the cinematography, but watching at home, it was like, I told you guys this over text. Like, it took me like 3 or 4 viewings of this movie because I kept turning it on and then getting bored and turning it off.
Yeah.
Like that was like my experience with it. It was just like, this is boring. I'm just not in the mood for this. And I would like turn it off. But like when I was watching it, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, this is fine. There's some action. People are fighting, it's like kind of just a by the books movie. That's kind of how I took it.
I
Sean,
don't know that I'd make it through this movie in theaters, honestly. Like, I wouldn't leave, but I'd probably fall asleep. Like, I think seeing it at home kind of saved it for me from being like a 1-star movie, because I could at least like, I don't know, do anything else. Yeah, like look at my phone or something. Like,
Sean, didn't Kelly check out? Like,
Yeah,
you said
after
10
like
minutes
15
in?
minutes, she was like, do I have to finish watching this or can I edit?
She'd rather work.
Yeah.
Oh, now I get that text that you sent the other day. It was a picture of you guys watching the original Mulan.
Yeah, or that was Kelly, yeah.
Okay.
She sent
Well,
that. She
we need to
sent
move
that
on,
to me.
guys. We've been talking about this
Yeah.
movie for too long. We said
Yeah,
before
we weren't supposed to
recorded
talk
that we
about
weren't
it,
going to
man.
spend too much time on it. We've spent 17 minutes just bitching about this movie. So I think that we should move on. So that was Mulan. None of us liked it. Apparently, I liked it the most. I gave it 2 stars. So this might be our lowest rated movie that we've ever talked about collectively. I mean,
Yeah.
So let's move on. The next movie is Derek's pick, and Brandon's actually going to take the lead on this one, unless Derek wants to set it up first. But then,
oh no, that's fine. I guess.
yeah, Derek, you set up the
I don't know
movie,
what-
and then Brandon's got some like interview questions for me and Derek. So go for it.
All right. So the movie I picked was a documentary called "You Cannot Kill David Arquette," and it letterbox summary is: following his infamous championship as part of a marketing stunt for the film Ready to Rumble, David Arquette is widely known as the most hated man in pro wrestling worldwide. Nearly 20 years after he won the initial title, through ups and downs in his career with his family, struggles with addiction, David Arquette seeks redemption by returning to the ring for real this time.
Yeah, I know that some of these like intro questions we could all talk a lot about them, but let's see if we can get through some of them. I'm just like really curious from not knowing anything about wrestling and the history of it. Like Derek, this is your pick, but also Nick, because you're super into the stuff too. Like, what was David Arquette? What was like in your mind? What he did in the early 2000s? Like, what did you know about it, and how did it affect you guys as fans?
Well,
This is more of a Nick question, I think, because I wasn't into it back when this was all happening.
Did you? But
Yeah.
then still, did you even know about it, Derek?
I knew that he had involvement in wrestling, and I knew that people hated him, but I wasn't sure like the specifics of what actually happened. And
Okay.
stuff.
yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very familiar with David Arquette and his
Figured.
relationship with wrestling. First of all, let me just say, Derek, I'm like so proud of you. Like, I'm like so happy that you picked this movie. Like, I'm like the wrestling person, like, and I mean, I remember when you first got into wrestling and we like sat down and I like was like, dude, let me tell you about some wrestling's history, and so it's just like so cool that you're picking this movie, and okay, so. David Arquette starred in a movie called Ready to Rumble that came out in like 1998, I think, and it's a really goofy, terrible movie, but it's like about wrestling, and it's like it plays the kayfabe like kind of thing. Like the movie is like about these guys who think that wrestling's real, but wrestling's not real, and they discover that, but then they kind of turn it into real. Like they actually like are fighting the wrestlers as if it's real, and it's not a good movie, but I honestly think it's pretty fun. Like, come on, guys, Ready Rumble's not that bad. It's really fun. But so WCW and WWF at the time were like two different companies, and they had like the Monday Night Wars. They were like going head to head on Monday nights, and WWF was like the established company that had been around for decades, and WCW was like the up and coming company, and they started doing much better than WWF. Like they took over, they were killing them in the rankings and the ratings. I mean, and then WCW basically imploded. Like it like just creatively, ratings, like everything fell apart for it. And you could point to David Arquette becoming WCW champion as like the moment when it happened, like one of the moments. I mean, there's a handful of moments. Like there's a point where like the finger poke of doom, that was another one where like the world title changed hands because of a finger poke. Like literally, like a guy got like I think it was Hulk Hogan poked Kevin Nash, and then he fell over, and then he pinned him. It was like finger poke, but David Arquette, like he was a celebrity, and it's not unheard of for celebrities to be part of wrestling. I mean, the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, was aired earlier this year, and everyone loved it. I don't know if you guys watched it, but it was pretty amazing. And a big part of that was about how Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone like went at it in WCW, and it was awesome. That was actually like really, really cool. And they were like also like playing each other in the NBA finals at the same time. Like it was wacko, but awesome. But like David Arquette being there was at best like, him just being there was kind of like, okay, this is just a promotional stunt. And then they decided to put the world title on him. And the world title like is supposed to have respect. Even though this industry is made up, it's fake, but predetermined. It's like, these guys, they work their whole lives for it. And there's a lot of history and heritage and like honor in a lot of ways with the champion. And so to hotshot the title on like some celebrity, I mean, it's pretty shitty. Yeah. And
that really reminded me of the New York, like Broadway scene and the kind of new wave of film actors coming back, like reversing back to stage, and just like kind of a lot of New York actors, at least at the start of it, were getting upset about it.
So like that's like if
Hollywood
like
invading Broadway,
Tom Hanks or something, like or a celeb Brad Pitt or something coming back to Broadway and being like, they're not part of this culture, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
But then like Broadway like crashing because of it or something. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm also curious. Like really, the movie made like a point that he was really coming back, and it was showing him like in the news and like all these like talk shows talking about him. Were you aware of his comeback?
I had no idea until I saw the trailer for this movie.
Yeah,
honestly.
Nick, did you hear anything about this? Like his David Arquette comeback over the last, what was it, 3 years ago when it probably actually happened?
Yeah, I actually like knew all about this.
Wow.
Was like, I wasn't following it like super close, but like, I follow a lot of like wrestling, like, websites and stuff, and like definitely some of it got like coverage, that he was actually trying to make a comeback, and it was like this thing where like just like eye roll initially, like fucking David Arquette.
But I'm curious about you.
Yeah.
Was your eyes rolling?
No, I mean, yeah, my reaction was like, no one cares. Like literally no one cares. Like David Arquette, like you should just stay away. Literally no one cares. And that's kind of what was so interesting about this movie though, was that it was like no one cared. Like the movie was like, hey, David Arquette, no one does care. Like he went to that wrestling convention, and it was like, all these other wrestlers, like old timers, were signing autographs and stuff, and like he just was like standing there by his table, and no one was talking to him, and it was just like really sad. And but then
so cringy.
But then he put the work in, and he actually like became like a pretty legit like like not a great wrestler, but he became like a presence on the indie scene, and he like wasn't on WWE TV, you know, like it might have been different if he was like hot shotted back again, like onto like, you know, national TV, but you know, he was wrestling in like bingo halls and, you know, VW centers, you know, and like, he just he put like the work in on the ground level, and like he earned like that respect, and like that there's a point in the documentary where he has that hardcore match, and it's like really brutal, and he gets like torn up, and like you can tell like he wasn't like anticipating that necessarily, like I remember when that happened, like I read about that and saw pictures of it, and I was like, you know, I was kind of waiting for that to happen in the documentary, because I was like, I mean, they're gonna show that match, they have to show that match, because it was bad, like that was
I mean, it was bad, but like there was one accident thing that was, you know, probably shouldn't have happened, right? Like that.
The guy seemed like he was doing it on purpose at some point. Like,
yeah,
like he was trying to get revenge on.
Well, it was like
actor.
it looked like specifically. I mean, it looked like a piece of glass went into his neck and like, I don't know, cut his jugular or something, like a serious artery. It didn't look like the guy was trying to murder David Arquette, or I can't imagine the guy was literally trying to murder David Arquette.
I think I assume
like
that it's more controlled than it looks.
Yeah.
Like that guy does that every night, you know. Yeah. But I don't think that was supposed to happen.
Right. I think Derek's right. Like I don't think that they were I don't think he was necessarily trying to get revenge about like the history of wrestling. I think at that point he was kind of already like showing that he was putting the work in, but having a hardcore match was like kind of part of putting the work in. And then like those hardcore matches, like, you know, they don't really, those kind of matches don't really happen on WWE TV anymore, and they happen on AEW sometimes, but never to that extreme.
They didn't
like,
even
that was
mention
clearly
like the genre of match. I thought it was like came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
The documentary didn't explain that it's like a thing.
Yeah.
But well. I guess those were the two big questions I had. Yeah, we can go back. Derek, what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was awesome. Man, it was so much fun watching this movie. Like it's done really well, and it's like it's really fast paced, and like has like that right soundtrack, like, and like they edited it just like perfectly where it just like cruises. I feel like it feels like I don't know, it kind of feels like an indie like wrestling match like the whole time. Like it's just kind of like shooting through like all these things that he like went through to try to redeem himself, and I don't know, it's like it's kind of shot messy, and it's you know, quick pace editing, and like just the stuff that we're watching, nothing's like clean. I like the look and feel of it just all around. I thought that was done really well. And I think it's just a cool story too, and like I think is a cool kind of quick like run through of like the different scenes in like indie wrestling. You know, from, you know, he does like the backyard matches, then he goes and trains with some of the luchador guys and does like some of their street wrestling.
That was one of my favorite parts, Derek, when he was like wrestling on like in between traffic cars and then asking for money. Like that was so fun seeing that. Like, and that happens in Mexico, you know, it's
right. Yeah. Like that was really cool. And, I almost think
those
like
two guys
to
were
me
so good that were doing this flips. Oh
yeah, God. They were. Yeah. They, like everything about this movie, like each of those scenes was so interesting to me. Like they could have added a half hour to the movie and it would not have affected me at all. Like I would have loved every minute of it. I kind of wish they got like more into his, like, they kind of just skips from like a moment where he's like overweight to just not anymore. And I don't know, that's just something that I thought would have been interesting to kind of cover, like what kind of work he put in to get to that point. But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really, it's just a cool thing to to make. I'm glad he like was willing to put in the work, and like I'm glad he had someone come film it because it's a cool story, and I think it's like a nice little gift to the wrestling community, you know, to like be like, I'm sorry, but you know, I really do respect what you guys do, and there's like there's a cool moment in the movie that I liked, and it was kind of, I felt like people that watch wrestling are really the only people that are gonna relate to it, I guess. But I didn't know his like, who was his friend that died? The actor
Luke Perry.
Luke Perry, yeah. And I had no idea that his son was Jungle Boy.
Right, dude. I didn't know that either. And Jungle Boy pops up and, dude, what?
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like just seeing that they, you know, he like pretty much grew up with David Arquette like being his dad's like friend and stuff, and then they got to have a match together. And I just thought that was really cool. And Jungle Boy's really awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a really entertaining, good documentary. It was like pretty brutal at some moments and fun to watch. Even had some really like creative editing, specifically when he's doing that like second or his kind of first big-ish match with that other kid, and he's narrating like the script behind their moves, and then it's intercutting.
Oh yeah, when they're
like, that was just a really special like scene. And I loved how they went back and forth between those two.
That's really like cool, a really good insight of how wrestling like actually works.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you don't ever really get to see.
Everything is just planned out, and they have it memorized like a play.
Yeah.
Every kick, every slap. It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a different type of documentary. Like, and I think it's good to know that. Like, I was trying to think of other ones like this. Like, one that popped in my head was Super Size Me, where it's like, one guy is just like, I'm going to create this story and do this experiment and just try to execute it, and you're going to film me while I'm doing it. You know, it's not like they're following candidly this guy. Like, there's so much influence from David Arquette to the filmmakers and the filmmakers to David Arquette. And so it's like this kind of hybrid of almost like it's a film, but it's also really happening. If you kind of get what I mean, like there's, you know, literally scenes of him like on a horse, like smoking a vape with a cape. And it's like, all right, they planned this out. Like, it looks cool. And to do a voiceover, and we're all going to stand on rocks and have the music swell during sunset. Like, they weren't just standing on rocks for no reason. So it's like kind of cinematic too, you know, like it's not just all candid. But it's different in that way. I think I kind of agree with you, Derek, that it could have been longer. There was a few things they skipped over. One was like when they started talking about his alcohol addiction after he had gotten fit again, and they just like glazed over his like newly found depression while he was on tour training. And it like just went by within a minute, and I didn't really understand what was happening, and it kind of felt like there was a lot to explore there.
Yeah. Brandon, I agree completely, and I think there is like this really interesting like subtext. It's not even necessarily subtext because it's like in the movie, but like the psychological element of David Arquette and like why he feels like he needs to do this. And there's clearly like something like, I don't want to say wrong with him, but like he's clearly got a chip on his shoulder, and it does seem like maybe like he does succeed in like winning over wrestling fans, but it's not like he is like on WWE TV making like millions of dollars. He's wrestling in bingo halls, and like there's something weird about that. And like the alcoholism is another part. Like clearly he does have serious psychological issues, and the movie like touches on them, but then doesn't really go that in depth on them. And part of that's probably because it's like his documentary that he's, you know, hiring people to film himself, and he doesn't necessarily want to make himself look that bad or something. But
that's not what he wanted to explore, even though it was kind of happening.
It's a movie about his wrestling, not necessarily about like, you know, his psychological state.
Yeah. And like I said, I enjoyed the documentary in the scheme of things, but I also kind of thought it was missing like a bigger climax. Like I almost felt like he expected to get to WWE, and that was going to be the end of the film, but he never did. And so he never like had a specific ending. And I don't think they were creative enough to like figure out how else they wanted to end it emotionally without like that big WWE scene that they probably wanted. And so the movie to me just kind of like was over all of a sudden, and I still thought more was going to happen.
Well, I thought the climax was supposed to be that wrestling, like the wrestling convention he goes back to and has the match at, right?
Yeah, it still felt a little anticlimactic though, because I think like that match felt like a stepping stone to where eventually he would that's where he would make it into, like, if this was a story that was written, you know, like if it was a screenplay, that would be the match that pushes him over the edge into, you know, jumping into the WWE or something bigger than that.
Or they should have grappled with the fact that he didn't get to actually go in WWE and represent himself now. But they didn't do either of those.
Or
that was never his goal necessarily. Like that wasn't his goal from the beginning, and I think that was purposeful because like that's like part of the whole thing. Is his goal was to win back like the respect of wrestling fans, and like he did that, and just that climax isn't as like climatic as like,
it's not,
you know, a film
like,
watcher or whatever. But that was his goal. Like his goal was. Wasn't to get WWE, because that almost would have been like cheating the system again, you know. And if he had like, let's just say like gotten inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame or something, like that could have been an end goal that could have, you know, made the moment. But that kind of would have came out of nowhere as well, you know. Like that would have been like, oh wow, we didn't even know he was in contact with WWE or something, you know, where
or just like I kind of chalked it up to it's just a documentary, or not just a documentary. It is a documentary. It's kind of depicting real life, and he can only go as far as you know reality allows him to go. And I kind of emotionally it did have kind of a satisfying ending for me, especially with like kind of that Luke Perry's son moment. That was kind of an emotional, I don't know, recognition type thing, but it didn't really feel like a cinematic ending, and I could definitely see that. One thing I really liked about the movie is the idea of like, is this character an inspiring character, or is he an inspirational character, or is he like a cautionary tale character?
Great question, Sean. I agree. That's the big question in the movie.
And so like, is he like a slave to the whims of the public opinion, and like the fact that he has this singular driving mindset, and like, just, is it a story of self-destruction, or is it a triumphant return, or you know, him proving himself to the world? And I thought that was probably the most interesting part of it, as well as, you know, really getting to see the industry. But I thought that was do you guys have any thoughts on that? Did you guys kind of just go back and forth, Nick. Or
let's have Nick just take it?
No, I mean, Sean, I think that's like I said, I think that's the best question, and I think that weirdly the answer is both, because because it is like inspiring that he like sets off for his goal and like achieves it, and he does what he wants to do. But like the fundamental like drive to achieve that goal is, in my opinion, like kind of like crazy and at the whims of public opinion. Like he's at a point in his career where he's not really getting film roles. He's not really like doing much of anything. But at the same time, he's got this like super hot wife. He's got he's got kids.
She's so amazing,
you know,
like
he's got
a nice car, nice house.
Yeah, he's got a swimming pool. You know, he's got plenty of money. Like he definitely could like, you know, carve out a career as like, you know, a producer, or like, you know, behind the scenes doing something, or like an acting coach, or, you know, like a modest career. You know what I mean? Like he could do something like that, but instead he has to like, you know, go to Mexico and like train to be a wrestler that was like in a previous life, like 20 years ago, you know? And it's like, part of it is kind of like, part of it almost feels like a publicity stunt where like now like he does this and maybe he can get other movie roles, you know, and I do think he is in a few movies coming out, but you know, it is like a way to get him back into public attention. And I mean, I think he put the work in, and I think he like earned the respect of a lot of people, but also like the drive to do such a thing is coming from a place of like why aren't you satisfied with just having like a family?
Yeah,
and
it's almost like redirecting his addiction. Almost, it
Yeah.
felt like to me, you know.
Yeah.
but
You know, the movie also, Brandon, you said it reminded you of Super Size Me. It reminded me of I'm Still Here, the Joaquin Phoenix hip hop documentary.
Mm-hmm. I didn't
'Cause it's
see
like-
it, but I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost like while I was watching it, I was kind of going back and forth, like how much is it? Is this kind of staged? Is this like, or at least the drama, or like how, you know? But yeah, kind of a guy who has a late career, you know, total change in what he's trying to do, and like it also how that is affected by the public opinion and all that stuff. So it really reminded me of that movie.
But don't you think I'm Still Here was like totally a joke? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
I
it
feel like
was.
that movie was like totally pretend. Like he was
Yeah.
never really trying to be a rapper. Like he was trying to like
Correct.
basically like do performance art.
I also
But
don't
all
know
the
if
stuff-
David Arquette would have made this documentary or would have done this if it wasn't being filmed.
Yeah.
But again though, David Arquette
just
like
not sure.
did like become like a real he did actually become a real wrestler. I mean,
So,
say what
yeah,
you will,
it's-
but like he made the PWI 500, which is like a kayfabe only like magazine of you know, the 500 is a yearly edition that comes out where they rank the top 500 wrestlers in the world, which that is a high number. Like 500 is a lot, but also in the scheme of things, there's like thousands upon thousands of indie wrestlers. Like
Yeah,
there's
did Joaquin
so many
Phoenix
promotions.
really become a legitimate musician? Or
I mean, he kind of did. He did record an album. I don't know if he ever put it out or anything, but he recorded an album with I don't know who, like some like Puff Daddy or something. Who was it? I don't know if anyone else saw the movie, but
I saw it, but it was a long time ago, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I just remember like Casey Affleck directed that documentary, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I always think about him on Letterman, and I'm like, come on, he that's not real. Like that's not real. He's acting. Like that's funny, you know. But
it was also, I mean, not saying that this movie was not real, but it was very similar in how he goes out and does these public appearances that really like baffle and confuse the public. Same with like David Arquette, and like where he was going on to you know, talk shows and talking about coming out as a pro wrestler on Conan or something, and was that what happened? Like I think, yeah, he came out as a wrestler on Conan, similarly to how Joaquin Phoenix came out as a rapper to David Letterman. And I don't know, I was just like,
in that vein,
I felt
for
like there were a lot of similarities between those two movies.
it's like it's that, but not. Yeah, for sure.
well, anyway, that's this movie is it's called You Cannot Kill David Arquette. It's available to stream on video on demand, wherever you choose to rent videos on demand. Derek, thanks for picking this movie. I thought it was really great. I don't mean to move on, cut you guys off or anything, but you know, we have a couple of more movies to talk about. So, Brandon, you've got the next movie coming up, man. Another documentary. Do you want to set the table for it?
To me, two really great documentaries and two really entertaining documentaries. So Boy State is documentary. 1,000 17-year-old boys from Texas joined together to build a representative government from the ground up. This is kind of like a model UN week-long camp group, but just for Texas politics and like senior high school students. It's really interesting like concept, and I'm sure, I mean, definitely teaches people a lot, these kids a lot. And it is a great idea to focus a documentary around, just like this fake election process. Because to me, it was just like, you know, it's kind of just watching like Poppy reality TV, except for it's actually real and there's a ton of substance to it. But as far as the pacing and what's actually happening on screen, you know, there's like drama, there's people voting and people winning and losing. And it was just like a awesome ride to watch on a base level. They at least had that. But on top of that, I think it is like endlessly fascinating watching these kids go through the motions that exist in the highest level of politics, and them knowing what they need to do at 17 years old in order to win, and just the similarities that come up, and everyone's playing a character, all the different ways these kids try to win. It's very, very interesting to watch, and you definitely learn a lot, and of course it says a lot about our country. I think what really puts this documentary over the edge is just this, is the right word, cathartic moment at the end with you know, kind of our lead guy, Steven. His call with his mom was so beautiful, and it like hit me really, really hard. And yeah, I definitely had tears streaming down my face, and I was just like, God damn, they lucked out on an ending. Like he's just sitting in a chair and anything could happen. They don't have like this beautiful moment, couldn't easily just have never occurred, and they captured it on film, and that was the last scene of the movie.
And he gave that to them with a camera in his face.
Yeah. And it's just like so perfect. Yeah. So like, they lucked the hell out, but yeah, it hit me really hard, guys. And I was definitely crying along with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great movie, structured incredibly well around the selection, and so much to talk about these students and how they deal with being politicians.
Yeah.
It kind of like I don't know what their intentions are, but an aspect I really liked about it is the part of it that kind of dips into their age showing in like what they're doing. You know what I mean by that is like specifically there's like a front runner like early on who's kind of like a goofy jockey guy that like everyone likes, you know? And it's like he's totally doing like the, I don't know, like the homecoming king kind of like shtick.
Going off of a 2-prom platform type thing.
Yeah. And like, he's like, he's underestimating like the intelligence of the people he's, because he's assuming they are all high school students. Yeah. But he's thinking they're not gonna take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean that was a big turning point for me in the movie. Like I thought I kind of knew what the movie was and like where it was going, and and yeah, he was like this really obnoxious, annoying, loudmouth guy with these just ridiculous, you know, political stances, and then like. He, you know, they go into an interview with him and he goes, I actually don't believe anything that I'm talking about. I'm actually pro-choice. And like, I'm just, this is about the election. I'm playing this like a game. And then it took a turn for me in my head. Like the whole outlook on this movie was just like, oh, this is fucking so fascinating. Really, it's almost like digging into the basics, like the fundamentals of politics. Like, you know how they say in college, it's all about the fundamentals, in college football or college sports, they talk about, you know, it's more about the fundamentals, whereas like professional, it's a lot more complex and too more complicated, and it's hard to really see the fundamentals of the players at work, whereas like the younger, not as polished, you know, football players or athletes in college, it's more about like, can they get the basics right? And I feel like that's what this was. It was like taking a look at politics from that like more fundamental level of like, how does like getting people on your side work, and how do you like pander to your base or like get a following of people. And yeah, that was what really fascinated me about it. It was really just politics stripped down, bare. It was absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I'd never heard of this type of thing before. I brought it up with, I brought it up at the dinner table after I watched it, and my wife's dad actually went to the one in Washington when he was in high school, and so like it's, you know, it's something they do these all over the country, and like they have girls ones too, and apparently in California they have, it's like men and women, it's girls and boys doing it together, which honestly I think that might be like maybe better in a lot of ways, like in terms of like realism, but in terms of like a documentary, I think it does like make a pretty interesting look at it being like boys, because you know, 17-year-old boys are you know, 17-year-old boys, you know, it's
Everything's
like
a joke.
Yeah, and but then like also like, you know, you guys touched on it before where like there was the, you know, the lead guy, I think Steve Garza, is that the lead guy, where he you know, he had this line in the beginning that I found very inspiring, that was like he believes that we actually all crave gosh, what was it? We all crave like unity, or it was more of a political term, but we all crave, we all crave like partisanship, like we actually deep down want to like agree with each other, which like I don't know, is like the optimistic side of me, you know, in terms of like real life politics. Like I wish I believed that, you know, the optimistic part of me wants to believe that that's how Americans actually are. Like we want to find middle ground. We want to compromise. We want to like get along, but you know, it's like, but then you see like what's actually happening. It's like, man, there's so much tribalism going on, and people just like pick their side and stick with it no matter what. And it's just like, it's just rough, you know. But either way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go on this tangent, but you know, I thought that was like, he was doing great for most of this. And then it's like, what was so wild was like, you know, again, it like reflects what happens in real life, where like one little thing happens and then
that
like
had really nothing to do with him either.
Yeah. And nothing to do with him. And it was also like, you know, like it was spun to be like malicious, but you know, it might not have been. It didn't really seem like it at the time, and it, you know, that basically like changed the whole election. That changed everything.
You're talking about him, his like assistant shutting down the Q&A.
Yeah, it wasn't his assistant, but yeah, it was
like
someone that was part of his
party. It was the guy who was head of the party, who was also a more regional leader as well, and him as a regional leader shut down the opposing politician, the opposing governor, or guy who was running for governor, and because he was also the head of the other party, the opposing party, they spun that as being showing favoritism and shutting down the other party for his own benefit, for the benefit of his own party. And it seemed to work.
That other guy, like opposite the guy we're talking about, was so good.
Yeah,
like he was so.
They were both
ready for
really
this.
good.
Like,
Oh yeah, it was crazy seeing them kick into like action on both sides.
Yeah.
And that one guy, the guy who with the glasses, the one with the glasses, had the sickest burn I've seen in a while.
Like at the end of the movie?
No, like when, you know, so there's the whole thing about him impeaching him. Like his whole party was, or like there's all this stuff about a bunch of people trying to impeach him, like hashtag impeach him or something. And then in one of the things he's like, someone motioned to impeach him, and he says, okay, I'll open this up to the floor for a vote. And so anyone who wanted him to be impeached, wanted to proceed with impeachment, stand up, and like 12 guys stand up, and he goes, oh, good. You guys can start a regional basketball team, or, you know, Little League basketball team.
Yeah, it was perfect.
I was just like, oh, that was so good.
Yeah.
It was like, there's no way I could, come up with that. It's such a sick burn on the spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's like a, I think there's like a nugget of this movie, like, Derek, I feel like you were maybe alluding to like being like kind of like left sour with this movie. And I think there's like, I think really this movie really shows like I think it's a totally fair question. Like how did you guys come out of this movie? Like, was it inspiring for the future, or was it like sour for the present?
I felt it was honest. I felt like it was truth. Like I loved like the whole arc of the movie where it started out, you're just looking at these kids. You're like, what the hell is going on? Like a bunch of punk kids just yelling and screaming at each other, being sarcastic about everything. And then like this one politician comes in and changes the whole thing. He like treats them with respect and asks that they treat him with respect. And it takes this really interesting turn for so long. And then the messiness of politics gets into it. And you get to see that down and dirty fight playing out throughout the movie. And then like in the end, it's like, yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be hopeful or discouraging, but it was definitely, I feel like there was a lot of truth that played out in the movie. And yeah, I found it fascinating that it was something, a spin. I wish they had talked about like what the actual voting numbers are. Did he lose by, 30 votes, or did he get, wiped out by hundreds of votes, or
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and like just for this little kind of almost petty thing to come in at the last second and change the whole game, and that's what I think that's what the movie is saying was what defeated him. But yeah, I found it fascinating.
I guess the reason why it kind of left me with a sour note is it like you were saying, like they're doing it's kind of like fundamental politics, and it kind of showed that the way the system works, the dirtiest player pretty much always wins. And there's not.
I don't think that was the point of it, because like
I don't think that was
dirtiest
the point,
player
but
definitely
I think
didn't
that's what
win.
it showed.
Well, the dirtiest player definitely didn't win. The dirtiest player was the guy from the beginning who was just, changing up his viewpoints and.
I guess I didn't really even consider him like as part of it, because he lost so quickly.
He was unauthentic though. Like, I mean, he didn't stick because he was unauthentic. Like,
yeah, so
because it's not like there's sides that are right and wrong in this situation here. There's not like the party that won wasn't like the bad guys.
Yeah.
They might be like the opponents, because we kind of see it from Steve Garza's point of view, but they do. But I think they were like winning was more important than like Steve Garza seemed like he had a lot more heart and a lot more like he cared more about like if he was actually in this position, he would be the guy that cares more about actually helping people is what it kind of. And then it was like, well, but that's not the person that wins, and it probably won't ever really be that person that wins, is the way it kind of ended for me. I was like, oh, well,
One like silver lining I got out of it though on top of that was that like two like crazy smart people did win. And like you said, like the guy with the scars on his arm was so good and so into it and hardworking and smart. And then also they talked about the other guy was just like super well spoken, like intellectual guy. So like I just thought, like, regardless of, even though Steven, the guy we want to win, didn't win, like, wasn't just some like popular bozo who also won. It was like a really smart, hardworking team that did win.
Yeah. Right. And who? No one's to say that like their values are worse than Steve Garza's, but it just like I don't know. That's just the way it kind of left me. Is it was like the guys that really want to win more are gonna win, and we have to really pray that they're the ones that also have our best interest in mind. And those things aren't mutually exclusive.
I guess another thing is like
something that lines up a lot.
As as many problems as the system does have, it does do a good job of weeding out disingenuous people. And, it really did show that people do respond to people who are authentic and speak from the heart and really do want to do good. And I was kind of left optimistic, like this new generation of kids who, does have this reputation. Every generation has a reputation. We were the lazy generation, or I don't know, whatever. We had our reputation, and the generation before us had their reputation. Now it's like everyone's sarcastic in here, and no one wants to take anything seriously. That's the reputation they have. But the like almost character arc of the people of Boy State, not the main characters, but like the population, the city is a character type thing. Like their character arc throughout the movie, I thought was really interesting too, going from a bunch of rowdy teenage boys into realizing that they have to start taking things seriously and they need to grow up in order to enter this, in order to play this game, in order to work with the system. And I don't think it was all one thing. It was optimistic or pessimistic. I think it was just kind of a real honest depiction of the reality of the system.
Definitely provide a lot of insight to the system, for sure. I learned a lot. But yeah, I mean, so that was Boy State. That movie is available on Apple TV Plus. So if you have Apple TV Plus, then you can definitely watch it on there. I feel like a lot of people don't know that they have it. Like if you bought a iPhone or an Apple product in the last year, like you have it. So yeah, and I think you can also rent it on other streaming services. So again, they
do have a 7-day free trial. That's what I used.
Totally. So that movie is Boy State, and it's a documentary. We all highly recommend watching it. So we're going to go into our final movie of 2020 that we are going to talk about for this episode. And that was my pick, and it's called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This movie is available on Netflix right now, and it's the new Charlie Kaufman movie. Real quick, I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. Full of misgivings, a young woman travels with her new boyfriend to his parents' secluded farm. Upon arriving, she comes to question everything she thought she knew about him and herself. It's much better than the Letterboxd description, by the way. I'm a huge Charlie Kaufman fan. I kind of put Charlie Kaufman into a category of like filmmakers that got me into like caring about film. Between Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation, these are movies that like kind of changed my perspective of what movies can be. And he wrote all those movies. He didn't direct them, and then he's transitioned into being a director. And this is his third directed movie. His first one was Synecdoche, New York, and I think that is a masterpiece in its own right, but it's also extremely, extremely complicated and hard to follow. And Anomalisa to me was like, I was kind of disappointed with Anomalisa. I thought it was good, but not really nearly as like interesting or intriguing as his other movies. But he's definitely known to be off tilter. He makes movies that don't necessarily make sense. They're often, he used to be known to be like meta, like inside of movies, like he's referencing real life stuff that it's a movie or whatever. But he usually takes big concepts and tells them in a creative, interesting way. And this movie was just like that, and I didn't watch the trailer or anything going into this movie. So I really had no idea what to expect. And man, I was enthralled immediately. Like I was hooked right from the get-go. And the beginning of the movie is just the two main characters, Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley, driving to his parents' house. And they're on this long road, it's a snowy road, and they're just talking for the longest time. And their conversation's kind of going all over the place, but at least for me, I was so interested in everything. It was one of those things where the dialogue was so strong that I was like, wow. Like I just was into it. And then
it's well over 20-minute scene.
Yeah.
I checked.
It's long, yeah. And then they get to his parents' house and things start getting real weird. Like they have dinner, but like things are kind of like flashing between like time, kind of like his parents are getting old and young, and they don't seem all cognitively there, or maybe they're like overbearing, like they kind of are all over the place. And all sorts of weird stuff starts happening, and you're not really sure. And then they drive home, and that's another long drive, and that's like the rest of the movie basically. And there was a point where I was watching it, like I turned it on at like 6 a.m. because I got up with my daughter, and I just like, I'm going to turn this movie on now. It's early. I'm just going to turn it on. And my wife came upstairs at the part where they were talking about the movie A Woman Under the Influence. And I knew that she wanted to watch the movie. She likes Charlie Kaufman just like I do. And but like I was so interested in whatever they were talking about with A Woman Under the Influence that like I was like, I just need to finish this scene. And then they ended up talking about that movie for like 10 or 15 minutes. Like seriously, it was like they were just talking about that movie for so long. And she's like berating him about it, like just like he's like, oh, I agree, and then but anyway, what's my point? It's just anyway, and I eventually put it on pause because I was like, this is the new Charlie Kaufman movie, like, and she's like, oh, thank you for putting it on pause, but holy shit, what the hell was happening? And I'm like, I actually don't even really know, but I can't wait to find out, and I feel like this is a fair point to say. Right. Well, I think I know what happens in this movie. I feel like there's a lot up for interpretation. There's you could definitely come to your own conclusion with this movie. Like absolutely. There's all sorts of different threads, but I think there's a lot of detail there, and all the detail I think comes back around. And if you dig into it and find the context clues, then I think it all does make sense. But it definitely is a movie that's not for everybody. And I also think that, like, at this point we have to like decide if we're going to like talk about what we think happens in this movie. And if we are, then like spoilers. Also, it's like, it is up for interpretation, so it's not necessarily spoilers. It's like,
it's not really a movie you can spoil. You can really spoil. So I think we should just go for it. If you want to watch it, just turn it on Netflix right now and then come back and finish this up.
Yeah, but the thing is, it reminded me most of like Mulholland Drive, where like Mulholland Drive is most of the movie is just like a masturbatory fantasy. Like that's most of the movie. And then I kind of feel like this is similar in a lot of ways. Like it turns out that, Jessie Buckley is, that's the girl in the movie, and the whole movie's from her perspective up until it's not. And I think the whole movie was Jesse Plemons as an old man contemplating his suicide and then ultimately committing suicide, but like reevaluating like all sorts of decisions that he didn't make in his life, and kind of living a fantasy before his ultimate suicide. And it's to me, it's like it's brutal, you know. It's like really, really sad, and it's also really scary in some parts. Like the way this movie messes with tone is super fascinating to me, you know. And I'm kind of, you know, I kind of talk about this all the time, where like I kind of have issues when movies are tonally all over the place. But unless they do it well, and then I love it, you know, like Parasite. Like Parasite was a movie that, you know, switched the tones like at the drop of a dime. But oh man, like it did it so well, and that's how this movie was for me. Like there were scenes where the suspense built up so much.
Yeah, it's kind of always ominous in some way throughout the movie. Feel like something bad's happening, but
yeah, and ultimately, yeah, I think it is like it's leading to, you know, a character's suicide, and it's like it's ultimately like there's
I like that theory. I like that a lot.
There's this doom that's just coming and coming, but then there's that part where there's a musical, you know, and boy, what was that, you know? So, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I think this was Charlie Kaufman's best directed film. I don't know if it reaches the same height as like Being John Malkovich or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I definitely thought this was his best directed film, and it kind of reinvigorated my like love and appreciation for Charlie Kaufman. But I also don't think this movie's for everybody, and I think that like a lot of people could walk away from this saying like, "Fuck this movie, that was bullshit," you know, and. I don't know. It's fair assessment.
Definitely,
probably.
like, I think I just love his sensibilities as a filmmaker and a writer. Like the things he likes to do, I like all of that. But I think he's functioning on like this level that I can't keep up with. Like I remember watching. I don't even know how to say it. Schenectady, New York, and like I had a similar experience as watching this movie where I'm just like an hour and a half in, I had no idea what the fuck was happening in the movie.
Yeah.
And like, it's just so, I guess meta is a good, I mean, this one I don't think is like that whole movie's point was meta, but this felt different, but I just like everything about the movie's great. Like everything worked for me. I love the actors. I love the look and like the framing. Like it's shot in a weird aspect ratio too, isn't it? This movie was.
It's 4:3.
I don't think it's 4:3. It's a little wider.
Close
than
to
that.
it.
It's a little bit wider, but
5:3.
Did you look it up or you just guessing? Oh, okay.
4 by
like
2.5.
Like if you pick any single scene, like if you just like pull a frame out and hand it to me, like I know I love that scene. The look. Like the acting, like what happens in it, but I can't really contextually tell you what happens in it at any point. And I guess that's my only problem with the movie when I come out of it is like, I'm glad you had a theory, Nick, because I really had nothing. I was like, I don't know what that was. It looked awesome the whole time. I had a blast watching it. And like every actor was engaging and I was like into every conversation that they had, but yeah, I just came out of it like, what the fuck was that?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Derek. I really did enjoy the entire movie. I think like at the end, I didn't quite have enough of it put together in my head for the ending to like kind of come together and have a realization of what was going on. But really, I think the main like. Almost for me, the main joy of watching this movie or a movie like this is the like the conversation afterwards. Like what was all that about? What was like, you know, who was the guy in the janitor? Or obviously you kind of, that's one you can put together, but like kind of what was the movie about and really getting to pick apart all the different scenes. And I think this movie is just so rich with that kind of stuff. And there's so much there in this movie that you can pull apart and dissect and like try to figure out how all the pieces fit together. Not even necessarily in a way that ends up making, you know, totally making sense. But I just like, that's the real joy I get out of a movie like this. is the conversations after. And
Well, did you guys
think
watch
there's a lot
it
to
with
dig
anyone?
into.
Like, were you able to have like? Did you watch it with Kelly? Did you have a conversation?
Actually, I did watch it with Kelly, and yeah, we sat for a good hour, 45 minutes to an hour afterwards, just working on it.
While I was
Yeah, I think
watching
that's
it,
what
like,
happened.
I was like, this is the movie and not Mulan I would have wished we watched outside on your projector,
Yeah.
like with everybody. If it had happened, that would have been so great.
Yeah.
Me and Phoenix had a long talk about it after.
Yeah.
Yeah, got philosophical.
should
Derek.
Hashtag deep.
Derek, you said it like so well. To me, this movie was like so brilliantly put together. Like I was blown away at what Charlie Kaufman was able to direct. Like so well, like acted and shot, and the sets and the like really interesting editing. I was like extremely on board for, and I loved the opening 20-minute like monologue and conversation. I was getting like really into the like deep conversations about death and the end of everything, and like I think that's just like such a heavy, scary subject to put into dialogue in your movie. And of course, like Charlie Kaufman is just like can so poetically like tackle it. And yeah, fuck the second car ride afterwards was getting really intense for me. I was like, this guy's a serial killer. Like she's a goner, and I guess maybe she was a goner in the end, but not in the way I was expecting. But then, yeah, I've no idea. The last two, felt like I understood everything or what it was trying to go for until the pig and the a Beautiful Mind acceptance speech, which was literally the Beautiful Mind Russell Crowe acceptance speech, right?
That's my understanding.
Like word for word.
I don't
Really?
remember it, but
Yeah.
that is my understanding.
Was it when he won the Academy Award, or was it the speech in the movie?
In the movie, it was the dialogue
yeah,
from
yeah.
the film A Beautiful
Yeah.
Mind.
Right. It's line for line.
Yeah. And I guess he was he singing just Oklahoma, right?
It was from the musical Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really know, but I was just assuming. Okay. But yeah, the Beautiful Mind thing threw me for a curveball. I was just like, what is going on here? But it doesn't matter because the movie is so good. And it, like Sean said, it's just like you have shit to talk about. And
Well, like, so would you guys consider like watching it again, like after like reading more about it or something? Like, I mean, like,
Absolutely.
Yes. I was going to bring that up. Like, this is one of the few movies that I feel like I need to see again because I feel like I got a lot out of it, but I feel like there's so much more there. And I liked it enough that I want to know.
the dialogue
Like,
is
I
so
want to
dense.
have more of
I
an
would love
opinion.
to like.
Yeah.
I would catch
Yeah.
so much more, even just in those car scenes that I was missing.
Yeah.
Because they're it just goes on and on.
yeah. I mean,
Just side thing, I also want to say I loved in that the way her voiceover kept getting interrupted over and
Yeah.
over again throughout the movie. That was
Yeah.
so brilliant.
Yeah. Like even to the point where she like finishes a conversation with him, turns away, like thinks a word and a half,
Yeah.
and then immediately gets interrupted again. Like
Yeah.
That
And
was
did
so-
she turn into a different actor at some point?
at one point.
yeah.
Or like one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Which
think it
is-
was like
yeah,
that's why I
that's
feel like it was
really-
a. I feel like it was like a combination of a lot of different fantasies he was having. That's why, like at the end, I felt like there were all those different women that were in the audience, and it was like he
Also,
was,
the girl she turns into is from a show they were watching earlier.
the Robert Zemeckis movie, right?
Oh,
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think,
maybe. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's like one of the
there's a lot
clues
to
that the
dig into.
janitor is like the same person as like Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's the janitor's suicide, thinking about like what could have been, like what it, and I think like it's not specific to one person because like so not only does she change actresses at one point in the movie, but like she has different backstories. At one point, she says like she grew up on a farm. At another
Yeah.
point, she says
She's
she like
in an
she grew up in an apartment.
Yep.
And
Her profession, she's
yeah,
like studying everything.
Yeah,
throughout the
yeah,
movie.
exactly.
And she's an artist and a
Artist.
poet.
Poet.
Her name changes a bunch too.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Her
physicist.
name changes all
yeah.
the time. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting. Like how I think it was him, like all the different loves of his life, or all the different women who he's been with. You know, going over how it could have been different.
She's from Chernobyl, and
Yes.
I was totally trying to figure out how I
Yes.
knew her face, but she just has like a great presence to her.
Yeah,
She
definitely.
did really good. And Jesse
she's-
Plemons is always like unique and special.
Yeah.
Also,
I used to think Jesse
Everyone-
Plemons was a poor man's Paul Thomas Anderson, or not Paul Thomas Anderson, a poor man's Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Because
yes.
I feel like they look
He's
kind of
like-
similar. The first time I saw him was in The
he's-
Master, but
It's Philip Seymour Hoffman combined with Matt Damon.
oh my gosh,
equals
so
I
Jesse
had-
Plemons.
but
I had
he's so
just-
good though.
I just the night before watched the episode of Breaking Bad where he shoots that kid. And so like as soon as I see him in this movie, I'm like, oh, this motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know what this movie really in like aesthetically is similar is everyone except for Toni Collette are from the Fargo TV
Yes.
series.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, really?
And yeah, and Jesse Buckley's in the new season that just started on Sunday.
The father, David Thewlis, did a great job alongside of Tony. Obviously, Toni Collette is just brilliant, but like he kept up right with her for sure.
For sure. They're really good.
yeah, it's Lupin.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's in
Professor
Harry Potter,
Lupin.
right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. Good.
I thought this movie was pretty great. You know, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I feel like Sean, I'm totally with you. Like for me, I feel like I got so much more out of this because like I finished watching it and I loved it, and then like a day later, Shan watched it, and then we I watched the ending a second time, like while she was like I kind of came back into the room and like rewatched the ending with her, and then we like talked about it like for like an hour, and we like worked out a bunch of stuff, and she was actually the one who was like telling me like I think he committed suicide, like that's what that was, and oh yeah, and then doing further reading, it's like put pieces together, and I fully intended on rewatching this before the podcast just because I really wanted to have a better idea of like what I really thought about this movie, but I didn't have time, but I'm definitely gonna rewatch it before the end of the year because I think it's gonna make my top 10. But
Yeah. This is
I do want to say that
Spoiler alert. Jeez,
I mean,
Nick. I know
it's just
we already
me-
gave a spoiler warning, but
this is just
Not
me
for that.
speculating. I'm not saying it's my number 3 or something. It's just speculating.
I'm
You
right
know,
there
that
with
could
you,
change.
Nick.
But I do highly recommend David Chen put out a YouTube video of like his take on it, and he did a lot of research and like put pieces together that were like he did the research, and like I found out through his video that like that whole bit I was talking about a woman under the influence, apparently that is actually a review, like a pretty famous review of that movie, like just like he quoted A Beautiful Mind, that's basically just like that is someone's review of that movie. And I mean I think that reflects like the character is like
Oh, I guess it does make sense that he's like quoting these real life things because he would know those real life things, and he actually saw A Beautiful Mind
yeah.
in his
Hoffman's
fantasy,
so crazy.
right?
And they're things that he found inspiration from, and so it's like he's putting things that inspired him into his fantasy. But so yeah, I don't know. I highly recommend watching Dave Chen's video because I think he did a really good job with
That
it.
dance scene was beautiful,
Yeah, you do.
so
you know,
well choreographed. Oh my god!
see, Brandon, like I'm so happy you like this movie because like we've talked about it before. Like you're not so into like interpretation and like what's this movie
Themes.
about and stuff like that. But I was like I wonder if I think Brandon's gonna love this movie though just because of like how well it's directed.
Just like the veil floating down on her head. It's just like there's just so many creative, beautiful ideas everywhere. Like who thought of that? It just looks so great.
Yeah.
Even that little touch.
Yeah. Okay,
I
so
should
with
point
that
out
though, I
too,
think,
it's based on a book too that It sounds like is a much more literal telling of this story, from what I understand.
Right? Yeah.
So
Totally.
And then he put a spin on it, the Kaufman spin.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think we should wrap it up, though, guys. We're kind of going long, so
Let's do it.
Yeah, so that was our final movie. So real quick, we're going to go over our picks for next month. So for the month of October, we're going to talk about, we're real quick going to run through what we are choosing to watch. And all four of us don't have to watch it. Like, it's not a requirement that you have to watch it, but it is encouraged that you watch it. It's, hey, come on, guys, there's 2020 movies that are out. They're coming out. Let's be on top of this. But for the film club, whatever movie is picked for the film club, all four of us have to watch it. So we'll go over the film club last, and Derek, you're doing the film club for this month. So real quick, Sean, what movie are you picking for 2020?
Well, I'm stealing the movie that Nick was going to do. She Dies Tomorrow. I pretty much just listened to a Slash Film episode where they talked briefly about it, and I was really fascinated and was super interested in it. So the synopsis is a little, Amy thinks she's dying tomorrow, and it's contagious. And it sounds super interesting. And it's not what she's dying of. My understanding is it's not what she's dying of that's contagious. It's believing that you're going to die tomorrow is contagious. So,
Total.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really fascinating movie, and Sean, I had this on my short list of movies I was gonna pick for this month. But for me, I'm also doing horror movie month, so I had it on my horror movie month list. So I'm psyched that you're picking it.
Dude, I didn't even think about horror movie month till just now. I forgot it's October.
Sean, what streaming site is it on?
Oh yeah, I looked that up. I think it's just Amazon Anywhere.
Rental.
Yeah, it's video on demand. So yeah, we'll
VOD.
So, Brandon, what movie are you picking?
I'm picking The Boys in the Band, which is a remake of a 1971 film, which is an adaptation of the 1968 off-Broadway play about a group of gay friends in New York City, West Village, hanging out, I guess. I don't know too much about it, but this predates Stonewall, and it was very revolutionary when it was up on stage, and nothing like this had ever been seen before. And 1968, so that'll be cool
when was
having that in the back of my mind.
Was that 70s?
What?
When was Stonewall, Brandon?
1969.
Was that 70s? Stonewall?
1 year later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so right before?
Yeah. And this is just premiered on Netflix a few days ago, so brand new.
Yeah.
Oh, also the cast is insane. It's like every single Hollywood gay A-lister is one of the boys in the band. So
Very true.
It's pretty all-star studded.
For sure. Great pick. Very excited to watch that one. It's on Netflix. So, Derek, what movie are you picking?
I'm picking The Trial of the Chicago 7.
All right.
All I need to know about it is that it's Aaron Sorkin's second directorial movie that he also wrote. And so I'm in. And that'll be premiering on Netflix October 16th. I really don't know anything about it. I'm not familiar with what that is. But I just know that I like pretty much everything he does. So I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, it's like a courtroom drama from what I understand. But yeah.
Right, that's what I figured.
I mean, it's called The Trial,
yeah.
so I guess I'm providing zero insight to that one. So I'm picking a movie called Dick Johnson is Dead. I kind of thought I was going to pick a horror movie, but I'm not. This is actually a documentary that got a lot of buzz coming out of Sundance. I don't know if it won, but it's been on my radar all year. It's like on Letterboxd, it's like number 1 or 2 on their highest rated movies of the year. It's getting just totally positive reviews, and it's apparently about this father who's dying, and they stage a funeral for him in secret or something. I'm not totally sure, but it's from what I understand, it's an optimistic take on dying and saying goodbye. And I mean, maybe I'm saying too much using the word optimistic because I haven't seen the movie yet, but it's just getting rave reviews, and it sounds fantastic. And so and it's going to be on Netflix. So I'm just psyched that it's going to be on Netflix. I think like next week, October 2nd, so tomorrow. So by the time you listen to this,
wow.
Going hard,
dude, there's a bunch of good movies like coming out. I mean, there's another documentary on Amazon Prime called Time that looks great. Netflix also has a remake of an Alfred Hitchcock movie, Rebecca. That looks really interesting. And there's a few good movies that are coming out this month that are straight to VOD. So for all of us who have been starved for movies because we haven't anything in theaters, it feels like it kind of feels like award season is coming still. And like, you know, I kind of like, you know, we had that whole discussion about Mulan and the money being on the screen, but like, I don't know, I kind of wonder, like, can you appreciate an awards movie just as well, like on your TV? If it, you know, I kind of think you might be able to. So I'm kind of eager to have these critically acclaimed movies come out. So
Yeah.
Anyway, Derek, for Film Club, what was your pick?
Yes, so I'm sticking with my trend of picking first films of directors we all enjoy. And so this time I'm choosing 1996 film Pusher. It was Nicholas Winding Refn's first movie.
Oh, wow.
What?
And yeah, it's a crime movie, and I've always heard it's really great.
So you haven't actually seen this movie?
Refn.
I have not seen it.
Okay. So Nicholas Winding Refn, the same guy who did Drive.
Drive isn't his first
Demon.
movie. It's
Whoa.
his 9th movie. What?
Yeah, dude. He did like a
Yeah.
bunch of movies before.
I've
that.
actually seen. I
didn't
saw a
know
bunch of
this.
his movies before Drive too.
That's cool, Derek.
So
Wow.
But,
we're all into.
Good job.
We have to
Derek.
rent. We'll have to rent that one too.
Okay.
Where's this from? Is this anyways.
Oh, and it's like one of Mads Mikkelsen's first movies too. I think.
It's a Danish film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, like we should be able to watch on Tubi TV or rent on demand or something. So it should be available.
Yeah, I know Amazon has it for sure.
Cool. Well, that was a fun episode, guys. Thanks for being here and talking about movies for an hour and a half. And this has been the Monthly Movie Dispatch. So signing off until next time. Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.